I'll talk you through how we came about, what we do, and all that kind of stuff. So, my background is I've been at the BBC for about 15 years, so I'm kind of, in BBC terms, kind of in middle-aged, really, in BBC terms. There are plenty of people who've been around a lot longer than me, and a fair number of people who've been around not quite as long. I've had a sort of a broad career. Started my career in print. I joined 5 Live with no broadcast background at all, and spent a couple of years at 5 Live and World Tonight. Spent 4 years at Westminster doing Westminster politics. During the 2001 election, around the 2001 election time, spent a couple of years working with David Frost outputting his programme, and then joined the website operation June 2004, sometime around then, when there was some very simple, very basic interactivity. The kind of the talking point, have your say, message board functionality was around, but in very, very crude forms. There was a little bit of a very, very small piece of kind of the idea of user-generated content and talking to the audience and getting their experiences and writing them up for the site. There was very basic stuff around like that, but it was really quite basic, quite crude, and quite kind of unformed compared to where we are now. Then we had the tsunami, Boxing Day 2004, when because we had a basic understanding, we had the channels and the mechanisms to get audience reaction and eyewitness content in. We did that, obviously, and we were completely swamped, if that's not an appropriate term to use, by the amount of content we were getting in. I mean, literally thousands and thousands of emails from people in the region, thousands and thousands of people who had friends or relatives in the region. That was emails, that was video content, that was mobile phone still content, and it completely transformed the coverage, not just for us, but for everybody, of that story. So we looked at that and we thought, there's a real opportunity here. There's a real, something is really happening here, and we need to find a way of plugging into this, of harnessing it, of continuing this kind of conversation. We had to think about it. We went to the senior editorial figures journalism all the time, in a bit with a project idea, and it would be fair to say that we were met at the time with a bit of scepticism. It's not a secret that at the time some senior figures were less than enthusiastic about the idea and didn't really see the point of it. However, Adrian Van Claveren, who at the time was the deputy head of news, did. He's now control of 5 Live, and found some funding for a 3-month pilot project. He said, here's some money to fund 3 people for 3 months. Go away, see what happens, see how it works, write a report, and then we'll take it from there. However, we hadn't been fully up. This pilot wasn't up and running fully. We only had 2 people running out of the 3. When July 7th, 2005 happened, and that completely changed the game. That was the turning point. From then, from that moment, when we had a 3-person pilot project, 3-women pilot project, we now that was running 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, we now are the kind of the hub itself as part of a bigger team is 13, 14 people that runs 24/7. We work with every single part of BBC output. We worked on every major story and made a huge difference to every single major story in the meantime. It's been an interesting journey because breaking down scepticism through that period has been part of the battle. But once people have realised what we can bring to the party, not just in terms of straightforward kind of accidental journalism, but in terms of the audience relationship and how it can transform and change our journalism, it's been it's gone fairly smoothly. The team won an RTS in 2007, for the coverage of the floods that hit the UK the previous year. It was for the floods in 2007 that we actually got in 2008. That's why I always get confused. And we were, for the same award, also shortlisted for our coverage of the Burmese uprising, which was an interesting turning point, in another interesting turning point in the way that we, in the way that we've developed what we do. Initially, up until really the Burmese story, the focus of a lot of the work that we did was essentially around building a relationship with our own audience and looking for content and generating content through our own audience. But from about 2007, it became apparent that there were other parts of the internet where interesting things are going on, and the idea that everybody specifically and just wants to talk to the BBC wasn't entirely true. So we've been increasingly working on social media platforms, just in terms of if I'm just talking specifically now about finding great content and working with those people to bring into our storytelling. So we started on Twitter very early. We found people in Lhasa through Twitter on one of our early successes. I remember very clearly. It was a guy who was tweeting from Lhasa during the Tibet uprising. Dates our involvement on Twitter, and we've been working on platforms like Facebook and Quick. We played around a little bit with Seismic for when the whole idea of video chat was around. We're now kind of at the next stage of the BBC, at the next stage of its operation, of its development in this arena. Peter Horrocks was saying just recently, he was talking about how in his new role as head of World Service News Operation, that social media is now an absolutely essential toolkit for journalists. If you haven't got it, you're in trouble. And that's something we're kind of working on and rolling out across the whole of BBC. Our more broadly outside the work that the Hub does, we're looking at ways of sharing and engaging on social media platforms, and developing new ways of storytelling, engaging the audience more through ideas of network journalism ideas, and collaborative projects, as well as kind of the core function of kind of what we do. I could carry on talking for a long time. Stop me and ask some questions.